What's up, Doc? Well, guess what, folks? You're listening to the Stage Door Show with Dave Hondel. Well, take it away, Doc.
The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Stage Door Show. This is Dave Hondel. Tonight, I have the honor of having a great voice actor who's been doing this for many, many years and has voiced every character you can imagine that you've watched on TV, from Looney Tunes to Hanna-Barbera to many, many commercial characters. And so I'd love to bring him in right now. So thank you so much for joining us, Jeff Bergman.
Well, thanks for having me, Doc. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much. Now, I know there's a story behind, all your voices, but, I wanted to start with this because I know you've told this story a million times, but for our listeners who may not have heard this, you actually got to meet and speak to Mel Blanc, prior to you doing voices, so talk about that chance meeting that you had, because I think, what you did, I thought was just amazing. And I don't know if I had the guts to do that, but you did. So tell us about how that went.
Well, I was a junior at the University of Pittsburgh getting my undergraduate degree. And like a lot of people around that age, I was 20, just about 20, not really sure what I wanted to do. I mean, maybe I was going to do stand-up comedy, possibly theater, maybe radio. I really wasn't sure. And so I'm just kind of walking around the campus, and I see a sign that says Mel Blanc appearing at David Lawrence Hall, and I'm thinking, oh my God, Mel Blanc, voice of Bugs Bunny. Well, all right, that sounds pretty cool. So I thought, all right, I'm gonna check that out. So I get over there, and it's standing room only. There's like 400 people, maybe more, in this lecture hall, all huddled together. And there was this little diminutive guy on stage. He brings with him like 2 cartoons, shows a couple of Bugs Bunny cartoons, and then he was doing Bugs and Daffy and Foghorn and Barney Rubble, all the characters that he created and made famous. And I think it just affected me. There was a visceral feeling that I was having, and I don't know that I was totally aware of it, but I think I was possessed. That after I saw him speak, they had a reception for him in the student union, and I attended that. And he gave out these little autographed, papers with his characters on it and his face, and it said Mel Blanc, and I got one of those. And I had just by chance overheard he was staying at the motel, this little dinky motel that they had on campus for parents or whoever would be guests there, and people would stay there. And I overheard he was staying there, so I basically I found out what room he was in. I mean, I don't know in what universe and world did I ever think that was even slightly appropriate, but I don't know. I guess I was so innocent. So it was about 10 o'clock at night. I knocked on his door, and I thought, God, I hope I have the right door. I think I do. And the door, well, first I hear a voice. The voice says, just a jiffy. Kind of sounded a little like Barney Rubble and a few other voices. The door opens up, and there's a man in a red cordovan bathrobe with some gold chains. And I said, Mr. Blanc, oh my God, I have to be one of your biggest fans in the whole world. If I could just have 3 minutes of your time, it would be incredible. I saw your lecture at the University of Pittsburgh. I'm a student there, blah, blah, blah. So I think I authenticated myself enough that he felt a little comfortable. And then he said to me, are you Jewish or Italian? And I said, I'm Jewish. And he said, all right,
come on in.
So, I mean, you never know what the right answer is. So
Sure.
He invited me to come in. There was these 2 little rinky-dink twin beds, and we sat down and we faced each other on these little beds. And I mean, I just couldn't believe that it was just like, oh my God, is this real?
Yeah, right.
And I would see him on the Jack Benny show. And, I mean, it just was like it was not really happening.
Right.
And so we chatted for about, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. And he said, well, look, he asked me to do a couple of voices. I did a couple of voices for him,
Yeah.
not cartoon voices, because I never did any cartoon voices at that point. So I just did voices that were his contemporaries, like Jack Benny and George Burns. Well, anyhow, get to the point. He said, well, look, stay practicing and keep up the good work. Stay in school, get your degree if you can, because I really was like, I don't know, school material was
Right.
it's not academic. So he said, but if you ever get out to California, look me up. And that was the end of the interview.
Yeah.
And 8 years later, he passed away, eerily enough, on my birthday.
Wow.
And 2.5 weeks later, Steven Spielberg is casting for Tiny Toons. And that was the beginning, really, of everything.
So how did you, I mean, you didn't do cartoon voices at that point, but, because I don't think people understand sometimes when you do voices, I mean, you do so many of them that even if you sound like the person, there's a certain pitch to your voice that you have to have, and it changes by character. So how did you learn all those voices, but not only learn them, but learn the dialect and learn, the ins and outs of that person? It could be Porky Pig, and it could be, Tweety and Sylvester and all those voices. You do Barney Rubble and Fred Flintstone. You have to have a deep register for Fred, but then a higher one, obviously, for Tweety Bird. So how do you navigate between the two? And do you have certain, I guess, techniques that get you to be able to, do a high register versus a low register? And how do you do it so quickly? Because I've seen you do several different voices, jumping from one to the next. And how did you learn how to do that? That's amazing.
Well, my father spotted that when I was around 16 years old. He said, that's something very special. And my wife often says, why do you do the voices back and forth like that in a TikTok video? Why don't you just edit and do that? I said, because everyone else does that. And I said, it's way easier to do it. I want to do it this way because it's way harder to do and it's cooler, and people, and you, like you're saying, but of course it's a pain in the ass and it's hard to do because if you're going, for example, let's take Fred and Barney. Now, Fred Flintstone's voice is, boy, it's around there and it's a lot in the throat, but it's also up there in the face. Now, my bosom buddy, pal, Barney Rubble, his voice is a lot up in the face, but also there's a register in the chest as well. So there's muscle memory, I've worked at it so many times. So it's like a musician that is playing something in the key of D, and then he's, shifting jazz musician into the key of E flat. That's your brain has got to know how to do that. And so there's just no easy way. It just takes a lot of practice because they're different people. Alan Reed was the original Fred Flintstone and Mel Blanc was the original Barney. So they're both different voices. I have to adopt a very different posture and there's a different vocal placement, which is, I don't suggest to do that unless you've really done it a lot, because if you don't, the trolls will come after you and they'll just say, that's not good. Yeah. So, and rightly so, they should do it because you're messing with their childhood. So you want to get it right.
Yeah.
So it took me, 30 some years to do it where it's pretty consistent.
Well, you did a back and forth where you had, I think it was Mel's voice and your voice, and they were able to toggle back and forth, and they couldn't tell the difference between the two. And so that had to have been, a great moment for you to have them realize that, wow, this is the same person, essentially, same voice. So, talk about that experience. I thought that was a great story. Well,
at the time, Mel Blanc was still alive, and I was working on the voices. This was when I was in the studio. I had gotten an idea because when there was a thing called a 3/4 inch tape. I don't think they use them now for anything. It's very archaic. And on one channel was the Bugs Bunny cartoon with Mel's voice with all the music and effects. And on the other channel, I had my voice so they could toggle back and forth. I mean, it was obvious that was Mel and this was me because I didn't add any music or effects to it.
Sure.
It was just voice only, no video, just voice only. But I thought, I'm really selling my voice and they'll get it. And they were very impressed. but they weren't going to give me that job for anything in the world. Not until they did a national or international casting, which they did.
Yeah.
A couple of years later.
And then Mel passed away when he was doing a film movie, and I believe that you took over that movie with the voices because they needed somebody to finish it off that sounded just like Mel. So was that kind of a break for you at that point?
It was very hard because here Hanna-Barbera was making their first feature theatrical film, The Jetsons. And their two lead stars, George O'Hanlon, who was George Jetson, and Mel Blanc, who was Mr. Spacely, both gentlemen passed away. And I mean, George O'Hanlon, I really wish I would have gotten to meet him. I mean, he just was, I won't say he wasn't acting, because he really was acting wonderfully natural, but it was so much of who he was. It was like Fred Flintstone. That was really Alan Reed, just elevated. With just great acting. That was their voices. Now, Mel, it was a little bit of a put on with Mr. Spacely. But, here I was in my late 20s. And so I did the best I could. I mean, I think they were, maybe solid impersonations, but it took me years to really layer that. But it was very hard because these guys were already, around 80. Yeah. And there I was in my late 20s, and I had to make it sound as close, to those voices, which was really tricky to do. And I was directed by Bill Hanna of Hanna-Barbera.
Wow, that's incredible.
In the sessions, yeah. So, and he was tough.
Yeah, I'm sure. And also being in your 20s, I mean, I would imagine that because just if you watch anything old. I think the way men talked was different than they talk today. So there's like a different, if that makes sense, it's like the old radio guys way back when, had it kind of certain, I guess, the way they spoke, right? There was a kind of the way they talk was a different style, I guess, than it is today. So when you're young and you got somebody who's older doing these voices, I mean, did you find that you had to really kind of understand their cadence, I guess, is what the way I would say is their cadence is different?
Absolutely. I mean, these were guys that were born just a little after the turn of the century, 1908, 1907, 6, whatever. And so, I mean, I just didn't come from that time. Obviously, a different vernacular. And of course, when you were listening, when I was in the studio at Hanna-Barbera listening to the voices, what they had already recorded, their voices were aged from the first incarnation of the show in 1962. So I came in all prepared to go, oh boy, I'm going to get the big race, Mr. Spacely. Janie. And I expected to come in to sound like that, but they didn't quite sound that. He sounded much older. So I had to kind of match that. And then the same thing with Mr. Spacely. I was expecting to come in, Jetson. Why did I summon you, Jetson? Oh, you must have goofed up somewhere. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, George. I'll prevent the board of directors from cutting your salary. And I expected that's what I was going to hear. And although all the acting was 100% there, these guys were workhorses and they were very gifted actors, but the quality in their voices from the age, it just wasn't there. So it was a very difficult job to try to age my voice to, I think now I would love to go back and really, well, I guess a lot of us think that, but I was honored to do it and gave it everything I could, to make it as good as we could.
Well, I don't think a lot of people know this too, and I just found this out recently myself. But you were also the voice of Charlie Tuna, which I thought was amazing. I remember those commercials.
I've been the voice of Charlie the Tuna since, let's see, I've been trying to get hooked by StarKist since 1987. Tell him Charlie sent you.
And then
that's actually my really first, what you would say, big voiceover gig. That That was even before Looney Tunes.
That's
So,
amazing. And then also you were Punchy with the Hawaiian Punch, and that's something I didn't know either.
Hey, how about a nice Hawaiian punch? Fruit juicy. There's 7 kinds of fruit in Hawaiian punch. 7 kinds of fruit in Hawaiian punch.
And I live near Philadelphia, and so I see a lot of the commercials about Gus the groundhog, about the lottery here, and so we see these commercials on incessantly. They're on all the time, and I'm like, so that voice, the character, and I was like, oh, there's Gus. It's amazing.
Well, do you know what's so really funny about that? The guy that took over from me, he messaged me one time, and I said, "You're doing a great job." I said, "Keep up the good work. He sounds really good." And that was a fun. I loved doing Gus, and I got such a kick out of the fact that somebody's imitating me.
Yeah, keep on scratching. I love those commercials. They're so good.
Yeah.
Just amazing. And, and also want to talk to you about, you're very interactive with your fans, and, not only on social media, but also going to Comic Cons. And I know that you do a lot of talkbacks and autograph signings and so forth. But is that something that you enjoy, traveling to these and meeting fans? I mean, it's got to be gratifying for you.
I mean, I've been so touched. I have to tell you, I mean, people have come up to me and said things to me. I mean, it just blows my mind, because I don't think of myself I think of when I met Adam West. I mean, that's my Batman who I grew up with. All the other Batmans are great, but that's my Batman.
Right.
And I was, 6 years old when I saw him, when I met him. And I met him at a Family Guy recording, and he was there to do Mayor West, and I was there actually to do Fred Flintstone for Seth MacFarlane. I was so nerdy fan, but I was trying to keep it very cool. And we got into this lovely conversation for about an hour. Took us a while for them to take us for our recording sessions. We had all this. I couldn't believe I'm talking to Adam West. And so, what was your question? I totally.
No. Well, I actually want to hear your Adam West. Now we're talking about it. Let's hear it.
Now listen, somebody's stealing my water. There's no time to lose, Robin. To the butt holes.
He was so special. And so I always think of, he's a star, he's a celebrity. So when people came up to me and they found out I was the voice of Boomerang, which I never promoted that or told anybody that. My wife said to me, Jeff, I'm telling you, I think people will get a big kick out of that if they find out that you did that voice. I said, but it was just an announcer voice is all it was. So I made I don't know, 15-second video, put it on TikTok, and I just said, well, this is Boomerang, the voice of Boomerang, the Flintstones. It's all coming back to you on Boomerang. And after I did that, I got thousands. Oh my, people were, that's you? You're that guy? Oh my God. And all these people from, I would say, the age of about 26 to around 30, that was the age group that would come up from school and watch Boomerang. And so I was meeting a lot of these people and these fans, and I have to say I'm very touched by it, and I just love talking to everybody, and it's just more fun than I ever thought it could ever be. I love it, actually.
Yosemite Sam and Foghorn Leghorn, Tweety Bird, Sylvester. I mean, just all these great characters. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The characters that you do, and you don't just do these characters, but you do them perfectly, absolutely perfectly. And I just so much enjoy, listening to your work. And I know you have an autograph signing, a live autograph signing on Whatnot on August 3rd, I believe. So tell our listeners about that. Oh, yes. Well, there's so many people have been asking me, when are you coming to Rhode Island? When are you coming to NYCC? Are you coming to Montreal? And it's there's so many Galaxy Cons and fan expos and cons all over the country, all over the world. And it's oh my God, I mean, you try to get to, as many as you can get to. And I thought, you know what? Here's what I think I'm going to do. I think maybe I'll do a live private signing. And this way it opens up, to the world, to everywhere,
because you never know with traveling. And I mean, in fact, my wife is traveling today, and because of that crazy digital, whatever that was, that cyber bug,
Oh yeah. Yep.
all the flights were like weirdly delayed,
That's right. Yeah.
So I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to do this. And this way I can connect live with people, sign stuff live, and interact with just, people from, from everywhere, and of course I'll do, more in person because, you can't replace that, that's like a live concert,
Yeah.
is kind of what I look at that, connecting with people really, that's super special, but yeah, the live signing will be on Saturday, August the 3rd, 11 a.m. PST.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, everybody's going to check that out for sure. And we have a lot of artists, like I mentioned to you before. And what kind of advice would you have for somebody that's getting not necessarily voice acting, but just in the industry in general? When they're younger, they maybe just out of school, like how you started. And, I guess from your years of experience, what can you give for advice for our listeners?
Well, let's see. Let's do 1, 2, 3. So, recently I heard something that I think is really terrific, which is ask for what you want, take what you get, use what you get to get what you want. And I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that. And then I recently was so inspired by a documentary that I saw on Steve Martin. And I think this was something that was made maybe last year, and I just happened to catch it now. It's been on my list. And if I tell you, this was so inspiring. He's a guy that he talks about himself and said, I actually had no talent. I couldn't do anything. No talent. But yet this is a guy that was curious, that allowed himself to be inspired by others. And I think that's really important, because when you see a great guitar player, when you see a great piano player, when you see a terrific singer, and it's whatever discipline that you want to do, don't ever, God forbid, think, oh, I'm never gonna do that. Oh, that's the worst thing. That's, doubt is the destroyer of dreams. Intention is the creator. And you just can't ever doubt yourself when you see somebody do something great. Allow it to inspire you. That's what I did with Mel. I mean, what's the difference between you and I? Nothing. You stick me with a pin, it hurts. I put my pants on, one leg at a time too.
Yeah.
So there's really no difference. The only difference is, what are you willing to do to make it happen, to get there? And so I think that's so important. And then Steve Martin's advice, which I think is so great, is be that good that they can't ignore you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he's right. And I totally subscribe to that. Or at least I try to, is to be, that good. For me, it's about touching people's childhood and getting them to remember their childhood. And that's very important to me. It's why I went into this, because I wanted to prolong my childhood. So, but it doesn't matter if you're a musician or, singer, whatever you are, whoever your inspirations are, you let them, keep inspiring you, and you don't quit. That's the thing. Most people don't realize that success is right around the corner.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. Like, don't give up on yourself. You never know how close you are to succeeding if you don't keep going. Even if you're not getting the yeses and getting the jobs, and you never know where that big one's just around the corner.
Yeah, in fact, there's a meme going around. Did you see that? There's a few inspirations of Denzel Washington, where he was talking about Reggie Jackson, and he said, Reggie Jackson has struck out more than anybody in the Major League Baseball, which I didn't know that. He was 2,600 whatever. He said, but you don't hear about that. You just hear about the home runs. It's true.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely true. What voice do you get asked to do most? I'm guessing it's Bugs, but maybe not. I mean, do you have a certain voice that people want?
Yeah, Bugs.
All right, suppose it could be Daffy Duck. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Yes, indeedy.
And sometimes people will ask me to do Daffy,
Yeah.
And
Oh, Bugsy, old pal. That's the Daffy from the Looney Tunes. Yes, indeedy.
but then there's the Daffy that people really like that I did from the Looney Tunes show, which is, I don't want to say it's more cinematic, but that's maybe my favorite incarnation of a Looney Tunes show that I've ever. I mean, I love all the Looney Tunes characters because just to get to do them is the coolest thing. But that's my favorite show because I got to be able to say things that were outside the perimeter of what they were saying. I remember there was a scene where Daffy goes to meet his girlfriend and Tina, and he knocks on the door, and all the Looney Tunes fans, the Looney Tunes show fans know this. He knocks on the door, and she opens the door, and she's holding a baby, and he goes,
What a baby! I knew it! You lied to me!
and she says, "It's my sister's baby." Oh, well, looks like a boy or whatever. It's so, I mean, the writers were so brilliant and they gave me such wonderful things to say on that show. So that was, so it's probably Bugs and Daffy. And then, of course, Yabba Dabba Doo! Fred Flintstone.
My favorite.
And of course, Yogi Bear.
Yeah. And Boo Boo too, right?
Boo Boo, I wouldn't touch that picnic basket if I were you, Yogi. You'll get in a lot of trouble with the ranger.
Yogi, you're in a lot of trouble with me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I guess it's those and Sylvester, you're getting to be a big boy now, son. And there comes a time we must discuss some of the mysteries of life.
Yes, Father. What do you wish to know?
Yeah, well, the first thing a cat's got to know is how to catch mice.
God, Father, you really are smart. Think.
That's great. That's awesome.
I mean, I love Sylvester. Sylvester Jr.
Yeah, I love Sylvester too. And
Tweety, the girls, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
They always want to hear Tweety.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. Oh, I thought I taught Putty Tat. I did taught Putty Tat.
That's awesome. Oh, thank you so much for blessing us with that. I love
Foghorn Leghorn.
I love him too.
That's a favorite. And when I was in Dallas, I had the perfect line. It's not my line. They wrote it for the Looney Tunes, where Foghorn says, and I say, nice girl, but I say she reminds me of the highway between Fort Worth and Dallas. No curves. So they really know that.
Yeah, that's great.
They live there. So yeah, Foghorn's another one. My God.
Yosemite Sam as well.
Yosemite Sam. Ooh, you corn-son Indian varmint. I hate that rabbit. I love doing Yosemite.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough. Before we go, one last question for you, sir. When it's all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be, Jeff? What do you want people to walk away with when they think of Jeff Bergman?
Oh my gosh, Dave. You're fast forwarding too far. Oh my God. I mean, like Bob Newhart said it, like how could you want to stop making somebody laugh or making them smile just to have people always think of you as like, wow, I love when he did that voice or, continued some of these characters that I love, I mean, that's what's better than that. That's really cool. And then maybe, to inspire people, I mean, I really think that this is a time that we're living in. And I noticed with a lot of people that maybe they think, oh, it's just too hard. Yeah, it's not too hard. And when you're doing something that's your passion, that's your fun, it's way easier than doing something, that's drudgery, that's dreadful. Yeah. So I just hope to be able to, inspire people to just keep at it because you're going to get there.
Well, you inspired me and you brought me back to my childhood tonight. And every time I see your work. So, again, thank you for that. And Jeff Bergman official. Make sure that you guys follow him on Instagram, and he's got a great, a signing and whatnot on August 3rd. But you do a lot of posting about it, so check it out and make sure that you dial in for that. And I can't wait to see that myself. So thanks for everything you've done, and thanks for the honor of your time today. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Dave. It's a pleasure, and my best to all your fans. And I guess I'll do I guess this is the appropriate sign off.
Well, Dave, it's been a real pleasure. So that's all, folks.